It goes from April 10th to May 4th. So get your paintings done. Prospectus and information are already on the website under upcoming exhibitions. We are very thrilled. Roberta wanted to do some international artists this year, and we're very thrilled to be offering a live online workshop with internationally renowned watercolorist and author Hazel Sohn. And that'll take place June 7th and 8th, I believe 9 to 4, but information is coming, and it's also on the website. Because of logistics and availability of the internet, where she lives in South Africa and the UK. So we won't have her for third Thursday. If you noticed on the slides, it says the next third Thursday is May 5th. Yes, it is. Her workshop will be Sunday, May 5th at 2 p.m. Her demo will be Sunday, May 5th at 2 p.m. Because she'll be in the UK and she'll have internet, which, minor details. Okay, so if you're not familiar with her work, look her up. She's fabulous, and her use of color is amazing. Convention workshops this year, I'm going to skip this because it's really long. It's on the website. And again, Ron did a fantastic job with all the slides just now. The pricing is coming up shortly, so check the website and we'll get an email out to you regarding that as well. And I misspoke when I said in an email that all the convention workshop instructors will be featured on third Thursdays. Stephen Quiller does not do live demos online. So, but there are plenty of videos of him on YouTube. So if you want to look him up, check him out, you can do it there. And personal thanks to the artists who participated in Artsy Edibles. It came out to be a really great show. If you haven't already seen it, please treat yourself. And don't forget that members can vote in the People's Choice for People's Choice, your favorite artist or artwork, which is one and the same because everybody has one. And you can vote up until May 5th. And as of this morning, we have one clear leader and two that are tied for second. Not going to tell you who they are. Don't want to influence anybody, but and you can't vote. You can vote for me, but I can't win. So don't waste your vote on me. But thank you for thinking about it. I know you all wanted to do it. You can see the show on the website, and then there's a little link below that where you can watch it on YouTube with music. Fancy schmancy. So Ron saved my keister on that a couple of times already. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our demonstrator tonight, the lovely and talented Donna Morrison. And there she is right there. And she's an award-winning artist, and she is born and raised Floridian. She lives in Tampa and got her BFA in Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. Now I'm reading. I was winging it before. She teaches weekly classes, hosts workshops, makes presentations, bakes cookies, and participates in jury competitions throughout the country. She has earned signature status, numerous societies, but the best ones are FWS, which I don't have to tell you which one that is. NWS, which is national, and Southern Watercolor Society, and lots of local places too. Let's see. Oh, she's won numerous awards. I already said that, regional, she was named top 10 emerging national watercolorists in the country to watch in Watercolor Artist Magazine. Yay. Her work has been featured in public and private collections, See, I like stand-up stuff better. Anyway,
That's
she's fabulous. It doesn't say anything in there
blah,
about
blah, blah.
what a wonderful, warm, you wrote all that crap, right? What a wonderful, warm human being she is, and a truly talented, and it's a joy to know her, and the world is a better place for having her, and this is all sincere coming from me.
Thank
So,
you.
Donna, it's all yours.
I feel the same way about you. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. It's so fun to be here. And I'm especially grateful to Kathy Durden, who's hosting the event next to me, and Robin and Ron, who are doing it remotely and keeping us straight and make sure that I don't have like drool coming down my face or something like that. So I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to paint with folks, because painting is such a personal thing for so many people. And I know oftentimes people are afraid to paint in front of other folks, and it is definitely a challenge. And I feel like it's a really good challenge every time I do it. I push myself into new places, and it makes me a stronger painter. It makes me have to figure out how to talk and paint at the same time, which I'm not very good at doing. If I all of a sudden go into a quiet moment, you realize, like, okay, wake up, keep talking. So Kathy's over here; she'll keep prodding me to do that. But so my focus tonight, and obviously this demo is a precursor for the workshop that we'll be doing in the fall at the convention, is focusing on painting Florida and the golden hour. And that can be first thing in the morning or right before sunset. And it's called the golden hour, for those who aren't sure, because the sun is not at its full intensity. You're getting a lot of refractive light. You're getting a lot of reflective light from the colors around. The colors become a lot more intense. The shadows are much stronger. And I like it because I'm not a quiet painter. I'm not a pastel-y painter. I really like the punch of color and the drama of that time period. If you talk to photographers, that's one of their favorite times to photograph, because the colors become so much more dramatic. And also you're not having to squint in the sunlight, but you have enough light to get plenty of information in your pictures. I particularly like this time in the evening because oftentimes nature kind of quiets down. Like in this picture that I'm working on tonight, it's a very quiet backwater image of Chassahowitzka River. And if you look at an aerial of Chassahowitzka, it is this coming up? It doesn't show on my, I wasn't sure. Okay. Okay, thanks. Chassahowitzka is a protected area in Florida. And if you've never gone there, you are missing a beat, because it's some of the most beautiful untouched marshland coastal areas along the Gulf Coast. And it's just an hour north of Tampa. They've got a great boat rental there. You can just pay a couple bucks and get a kayak or a canoe and go paddle. It's got all literally, if you look at an aerial picture of it, it looks like a tree, because there's all these tributaries of freshwater springs that feed into the main river that runs out to the Gulf. And it's one of the really important waterways that we're trying really hard in Florida to protect, because it has vital estuaries that are fed for all the little baby fish. It's got a lot of seagrass for the manatees. And as many of you guys know, a lot of the images that I choose to paint, I paint because they also tell a story. It's not just a pretty picture. So in this image, you actually can see one dead tree in the foreground, many dead trees in the background. And the reason they're dead is because of saltwater intrusion. And we have saltwater intrusion because of sea level rise, as well as tapping our freshwater springs to overcapacity. And so there's not as much fresh water moving out, and there's more salt water moving in. So if you've seen aerial pictures of this area back in the 70s, there were all kinds of different trees. And if you look every 10 years, they're slowly dying back because of this saltwater problem. So, you know, there are other things that come into play that also kill trees, but that's the main problem here. And it's something that I really like to share the story of conservation. And I do that through using my paintings for education. So if y'all ever have any questions about that, I have a daughter that works for the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and that is their heart and soul, is to preserve and protect wild Florida. And she will tell you about it all day long.
Hey, Donna.
Yes.
Somebody wants you to repeat and possibly spell the name of the place that you're talking about and exactly where it is.
Right. Chassahowitzka. It's one of those fun words that you find all through Florida. It is spelled C-H-A-S-S-A, Chazahow, H-O-W-I-T-Z, Chassahowitzka. There's a Z-K-A in there.
It means hanging pumpkin place.
It means hanging pumpkin place. I have no idea why, but
Because there's a place, because there's some little pumpkins there.
oh, there's some little pumpkins there. The neat thing about that area is because it's a vast area that's very marshy. It was very lightly touched by homesteaders. And when it became preserved, those homesteaders were allowed to stay, but no new homes can stay. So yes, C-H-A-S-S-A-H-O-W-I-T-Z-K-A. So it sits just south of Crystal River, Homosassa, all of the really commercialized spring-fed rivers. This one, even though it is commercialized as far as you can rent boats and there is a little store there where you can get supplies, it is not overrun with tourists, and largely because the river is very wide, but it's very shallow and has a rocky bottom, and so boaters have a hard time in there. And so I think and the manatees don't come in there as nearly as thickly as they do in some of the other rivers because of the shallowness, I think. So anyway, I love to sit in the middle of that river and nobody's around me, and I spent $35 on a boat, and think about the people that have spent $5,000 sitting in concrete jungle in Disney World and think, nah, I got the better end of this deal. Anyway, love Disney World. No disrespect to anybody that loves Disney. Anyway, so I chose this picture to share tonight also because it is a more simple picture than a lot of the things that I tackle. It's got a big, quiet water system and a big, quiet sky. And those are easy to drop in quickly, but not everybody knows how to do that. And so I wanted to quick show you that. But to do it, you have to do it and let it dry. And so I have this picture mostly completed here, but then I have it as an initial drawing and also staged with the first washes for you guys to be able to see. So I can pull this back, the finished one back up at any point if anybody needs to see that. But at this point, I'm going to put that away and comes back to.
I'm just doing the spotlight.
Okay. So this version of the picture shows the initial washes that I put in on the finished piece. And I did it in 3 stages. So the first stage is I tackled the water. The water is always darker than the sky. The reflections are always darker than what they're reflecting. It looks a little mottled because I lifted a little bit of the paint back off after I did the wash. The water also tends to be a little bit greener than the sky. And so I use some of the same paints, but then I also introduce in the darker paints, I like to use like a Payne's gray to darken it up with a little bit of green instead of just staying with the blue. The sky, so basically the image as you come towards the sunset line, there's a lot of yellow. There was a little bit of pink. I enhanced that on this image more than the first one because I thought it was more interesting. So everybody, you have your artistic license to do those things, so take advantage. But it's lightest, closest to the horizon line. And so we're using cerulean that migrates down into cobalt. The same thing up here, the cerulean's migrating up into cobalt, into ultramarine blue. Down here, it's also doing that, but a lot darker. And again, I'm also introducing Payne's gray, which greens it up a little bit more. And then this whole area. So one of the things I haven't said yet is the sunset hour. In this image, the sun was almost completely gone. So there's no white in the picture. You certainly could paint white if you wanted to, but one of the things I like most about the sunset hour is that, as I said before, the colors are so dramatic. And in this image, it's super strong, dark blues and very strong orange and red and yellows all through the vegetation. So I'm going to show you the picture real quick. I'll just put it underneath the camera so you can see if that shows up. So this is one of the things that I really like to do when I'm painting is use my laptop because I can come in and really look at the details without having to print out pictures. So this picture is way darker even down in here. You can't even see it, but I can see it. Very, very, very dark in the reflections. So anyway, y'all got the idea of the blues and the oranges. So I'm going to show you on this first sketch how to drop in the washes. And then we can jump back to the one that's already has the washes and is dry. So one of the things that people ask me all the time is what kind of brushes I like to use. This is a smaller painting than a lot of paintings that I would use a bigger brush on because this is a little bit smaller and the areas are tighter. I don't need as large of a brush. I really, really like to use a mop brush to lay in washes because they're very soft. They hold a lot of water. They don't create streaks, painting streaks because of the softness. I've got 3 different ones. If people are, like a mop brush to me, I can't really tell the difference when I'm using them. One of these is a Miller's Pseudo Squirrel Synthetic. One is Da Vinci. I don't even know how you say this. Casanio. I don't know. And then I got some new brushes recently, Silver Black Velvet, that I really like. They do a great job. So I've been using all 3 of those. But anyway, so the first thing you're going to do is just get everything wet and try not to slop paint onto your painting before you even start. I set up a brand new palette for tonight. So that's why it looks so clean. My palette usually is not clean like that. But what I'm doing here is literally covering the whole lower water area. Because the trees are so dark, I don't have a lot of color reflection in them. They're the lightest part of them is the trunks that are pretty orange red. And so that's an opposite color of I'm just letting the water, any extra water run off right now. Orange, as we all know, orange and blue are opposite colors, so you have to be careful not to get too much blue where you want your orange to be. One of the things we're going to work on too in the workshop, it's too complicated to do here because of time constraints, but doing a sunset, you have yellows next to purples, oranges next to blues, all opposite colors working. And so this paper is Fabriano 140, but in the workshop, I'm going to be angling more for 300 Fabriano Artistico because of the way it takes the colors. You can put those opposite colors next to each other and manage it really, I feel like more easily than a lot of other papers have allowed me to do. So we will explore that on another day. Okay, so the first color we're going to go with is Cerulean. I'm going to get it really wet. I'm going to be dropping it in the areas that are closest to.
And Don, whose name do you use?
Oh, the Cerulean I have is, so when I set up this palette, I had a lot of new paints. I really like to experiment among a lot of different manufacturers. And so at the Florida Watercolor Society last year, Michael Hardin paints were being sold and everybody was responding really positively to them. And so and they were a little bit in the dire straits because of some medical issues they set up and then immediately had to pull out. And so we were all trying to buy their paints to help them out. So I'm like, I'm just going to buy a bunch of these and try them out because they all sounded and looked amazing. So I put a lot of those in here and I'm using them for the first time. So this is a Michael Hardin Cerulean. I'm going to be going into Cobalt, which is also a Michael Hardin. That's this color right here. Can y'all see? Yeah, let's do my palette. So in the transition, I'll take that Cobalt with the Cerulean. And I'm going to go right over these trees because they're all, I'm avoiding the trunks a little bit, not a whole lot because you can go back and lift it off. But these trees are so dark that the blue that's going over them is not any big deal. And then I'm going back and just adding straight Cobalt. You can see how thick I'm putting it on. I really want this to get dark. And then I'm gonna go into ultramarine blue. Ooh, these are really bright. Again, this is ultramarine, this is M Graham. Very bright. So I'm going to now get a little bit Payne's gray. That was indigo, sorry. Here's Payne's gray. You see, I don't know if y'all can see the difference there, but this one has more green in it. And I really want to get this dark down here. And so now I hope y'all can see this. Basically, I do a lot of movement with my paper because I want these colors to have a smooth gradation. And it takes some babysitting. My class always says, time to babysit. Because if you don't, like I walked away from, when I started the second one, I had to walk away and answer the door. When I came back, it had dried, but there had been a puddle in one corner that created a big bloom. But I had to put another layer on, so it was no big deal. You just kind of use,
Donna, whose Payne's gray is it?
Sennelier,
Okay.
which I really like Sennelier paint. We were talking about that a little bit ago. So what I'm gonna do here is just kind of go back and dab some of this blue out of the trunk line. That needs to be red and orange. So if your space is tight and you want to get in there, I love to use Q-tips. They do a great job. Just try not to scrub your paper because you'll screw up the sizing and mess up your paper. But Q-tips are, and these are the more expensive precision point Q-tips. So you can really get small with those for all you manicure people. But you see how I can lift it right back out. And again, this is all in the reflection, so it's going to be blued down. So having some blue there is no big deal. When I did this wash on the one that's mostly finished, I did it 3 times because to get that intensity of color on the first pass is tough. So you get the idea of what's happening here. But if you notice, you have to keep it moving to make it nice and smooth. And as this dries, it will lighten up quite a bit. And that's it for the first pass on the water. Now, if I go straight into the sky, it's going to make me quit watching this. And so I'm going to try really hard to keep my eyeball on that because I want to do this both at the same time. What I normally do is I do this and I throw it on the ground so it's flat and let it sit and dry. And then I go to the next step because too often when I'm painting and I try to push it faster, I end up putting my, you should have, I had on long sleeves and I had a sleeve full of blue paint just laying right on top of it. I'm not very good about that. All right, so as we talked about before, the horizon line has the nice sunset colors going on it. So still using my mop brush, I'm gonna come in, do the same basic thing, wet this whole area from the horizon line up through the sky. Getting a nice blue cast here from my mop is good about holding color even when you don't want it to. One of the tricks of what I do is when I need water to run off and I've got something wet on the other side, but I don't want coming toward me, I just bend the paper in the middle. Works better if you have 140-pound versus 300-pound. Pardon?
You might want to speak up.
Oh, okay. So I was just saying, sometimes you have to bend your paper in the middle if you don't want your paint moving in a direction that's not ideal. All right, so this vegetation line is also very light along the top, so it doesn't matter if the yellow that I'm gonna put down on the horizon line moves into that vegetation line. So I'm gonna be using a little bit of it's cad yellow. And mostly
Is that Michael Harden?
the cad yellow is Michael Harden. You're smart. How do you know that? You just recognize the color.
I
Yeah, no, and yellow ochre, which I really like. The yellow ochre, I was telling Kathy, I've kind of transitioned from using raw sienna to mostly yellow ochre because I like it that much more. So I'm just dropping it right in. Doesn't matter.
Who's yellow ochre? Is it?
The yellow ochre is, you know, it is Michael Harden's, but on some of these, like the yellow and the cad yellow and the yellow ochre, I put an American Journey next to the Michael Harden because I was experimenting with the Michael Harden and they look the same. So you hear me saying that I've got Michael Harden paints, but you absolutely can use so many different paints that look the same or very similar, but there are oftentimes tons of paints that look very different. And I've been very disappointed in paints as well. So like in my palette, if you see these two purples, I put this purple down as a new paint, tested it, hated it. I didn't wipe it out of there. I just put this one down, tested it, loved it. So even though they look very similar, the way that they actually play out on the paper was very different. So anyway, I'm letting this yellow kind of run into the top of the vegetative line intentionally because there's so much yellow in there, and then letting it come up across all of the plant matter. It's fine because, as I said before, the golden hour, everything's going to be in color. It's going to be at least an orange yellow, if not an orange red. So starting with mostly the yellow ochre, you get a lot of that kind of orange color. Okay. Then one of my most favorite colors, which I couldn't find, I must have run out, was opera. But I had wild fuchsia, which is American Journey, and it looks just the same. So maybe that's their opera version. But so oftentimes in a sunset, like I mentioned before, you've got yellows and purples and oranges and blues. So the yellow and the red, or the yellow and the pink, are friendly to each other. So it's a good transitional color. And again, you oftentimes see these colors bleeding into each other and part of a sunset. And I'm just letting it travel up and kind of disappearing. I'm gonna again move my paint paper just a little bit. So I want those colors to stay mostly contained on the horizon. And I'm gonna leave a little bit of a gap before I start my blue. But the cerulean, the blue and the pink are friendly to each other. They look good together. They transition well. And that's the first blue. So you tend to have these areas of almost no color between these sunset colors and your blues oftentimes. Now, if you see me on this, I am trying to avoid a little bit of the tree line because the trees do have quite a bit of light in them with the reds and the yellows and oranges. And so I don't want to mute those down. In the water, they're very muted down, but not up here. So I got my light line of cerulean that's going into some cobalt. And I'm just lightly letting it come up close to the trees. Getting a little bit stronger as I get a little bit higher. I'm losing my moisture, so I'm going to add some more moisture here.
Donna, somebody wants to know what size your painting is.
It's 6. It came out of a block, and I believe it's 16 by 20, but it's truncated by 2 inches, so it's like 14 by 20.
Gotcha.
Oh, and see,
And,
so I just put a big dot of water in the middle of my. This is why I don't brush, because I just got a big dot of water. So, that's all right.
And what did you use for the pink?
So I usually use opera, but when I went to fill this palette, I couldn't find any tubes of opera, but I found a big tube of it's called Wild Fuchsia, and it's an American Journey paint. And when I squirted it out, it looks just like opera. And so I think it's their version of opera. If I'm you know how sometimes they have paints that they name something unique, but it's a version of a favorite color that is another manufacturer's color.
Right.
So again, I'm letting the paints move so they create a smooth transition. And because I usually do more than one layer of background like this, if I end up having an area that like my water drop that got into the base there, I usually can get rid of that by reactivating the paint a little bit with a brush. And then so you see that you've got this very soft graduation of color. And if again, when it dries, and it may be lighter than what I want it to be, and I can always add another, and you just do the same thing. You wet over all of it and you just put paint on it again. So the problem with this, because it's partly dry, if I go back in now to try to fix these water spots, it becomes unmanageable. So I have to let it dry and then I go back and mess with it again. All of these paints reactivate. So you usually can get beyond that. And then the whole middle area is has a lot of reflective yellow orange on the right side or left side. So I can literally go in here with all of that beautiful yellow ochre, put it in where all that bush work is going to be. Then again, we have this huge shadow in here where it gets really dark and it kind of plays into this, but you continue to have the orange running across the top here. You have the orange coming down the trunks of these trees. You can go ahead and stick some of that in, even now when it's still kind of a little bit damp. I know that looks crazy, but it works. So I'm not worried about this because what's going on is I'm transitioning to a little bit of a smaller brush from my mop. So right now I just went into a Miller Pseudo Sable 6. So I'm doing that because I'm just going to manage this a little bit where I put that orange. So the underneath of these trees are all the branches that are dying. So as they die, they're turning yellows and oranges and reds and browns. And so the underneath of these trees have all of those colors. So I'm just letting them go to I'm letting that orange kind of travel to the place where it's supposed to be. Again, when I paint at home, I paint much more methodically and slowly. So this would all be dry as I move into the next layers, but I don't want you guys to have to sit and watch paint dry. So we're just having fun now with watching it have its own play day.
Donna,
So
do you ever use arches, and what do you like, Fabriano over arches?
I use all papers. Because I really enjoy experimenting. I enjoy seeing what the different types of paper do. I would say the large majority of what I paint on is arches, Kilimanjaro, and Fabriano. The Fabriano is just super cool when you're doing the sunsets. The way it handles the paint, it's hard to explain, but the 300-pound, it's just like this sponge, and it doesn't it really holds the paint, but it allows you to make these soft transitions, and it's just a really great paper for me. So over in this side, we talked about how this is more shadow and darker greens. And I would go into, I'm going to stop with this because I'm kind of making a mess. I need to let these areas dry. But I tried a new green that is a Michael Harden green, and it's called olive green. It's this one right here. Really like it. It's such a, it's a little, it's similar to sap, but it's lighter, and however they make their paints, they almost feel to me more like Sennelier, like the binding agents are smoother. So, I like the color. You can see how pretty that color is. It's a little bit brighter, I guess, than sap. But it's my new favorite green. Greens are hard to find, apparently, is the common theme from people that are in my class and I talk to. We're always on the hunt for greens that like to play well with each other. And this is definitely a good one.
So tell us
Donna, what's your surface? Is it hot press, cold press?
Cold press.
Okay.
What did you ask?
which purple do you hate?
The purple that I hate is a Michael Hardin. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Cad red. No, that's not right. Sorry. I'm having a hard time figuring out where I am. Manganese violet.
Okay.
But don't like it at all. Yeah, it's this weird, I don't know if you can see this. It almost like it has some brown in it or something. I mean, I guess there would be time, maybe it would look really good if you're doing an urban. You wanted some purple in a side of a building and it, you wanted it a little bit neutralized, but I really like this purple right here is such a dynamic, strong,
Which one was that?
and this one, which is lighter, but it's just so much more of a pure. So the lighter one is Cobalt Violet Deep by Sennelier. And then the darker one is dioxazine
Yes.
Purple by M. Graham. I like that one a lot. It's really dark. And when I get into my extreme darks, I really like to use purple and blue mixtures to create that drama. And that's a good one.
That's the one my class that I saw my class, we don't get it out until we're ready.
Yeah.
So once you put it in, you can't go
Yeah,
back.
yeah. So put that away.
Donna, real quick, what was the green again that you liked, the Michael
Olive
Harding?
green.
Olive green.
Olive, okay.
And this just fell over face first into the wet paint. Wouldn't you know? Okay. Had a little accident, cleaning up a mess for a minute. No big deal. Okay. So here we are back on the one that's completely dry and we can take the next step on. Everybody with me? So at this point, I start building in more detail. I switch away from my mop brush and I'm using, I really paint mostly with point brushes. I didn't bring any very big ones. This one's an 8 Miller's Pseudo Sable. This is a imitation Kolinsky Raphael 6. Another Miller 6. So, again, if I'm painting in something that's smaller and tighter like this, these brushes give me the control that I want. And so the first thing I'm going to do is always building light to dark. I have already dropped in the light version of orange here, but the orange is way more dramatic in these trees. And I would like to create that drama. So again, I love to combine the opera or this wild fuchsia with the yellow ochre to create an orange because it's so much more dynamic than going to my cat orange. I just like it better. So these trees are all being lit from the right, darker on the left. So I start dropping in some of that shadow, come in, just start. Palm trees are one of those interesting harder objects for a lot of people to paint because they don't leave the light and they don't they try to make a palm tree go left and right, but nothing coming forward, nothing going up, nothing coming down. You have to have fronds that are coming forward, that are going all different directions. And so I tend to paint that way. And when I sketch out my painting, I make sure and sketch some fronds that way. So I don't over use my darks and miss out on those light colors. So you can see I'm just going along from tree to tree, adding some of that light in there. This tree is kind of behind the other one, so it tends to end up a little bit darker, but its lower fronds are going to continue to catch the sunset light. All of these trees will be doing that, so you really don't even have to look at your photograph. You just know that's the way it's going to be. I do like to make sure that the color is changing, so it's not just all the same color. So I'm just sticking some of the pure yellow ochre back in there as well, so it's not all just orange. And then, all of these tree stumps in the back are catching the light, picking those up, the dead palm trees. And I start just very loosely putting these vegetations in. I'm not following the picture or the pattern. I know that this area over here is light and it gets way darker over here, but all I'm doing is dropping in a lot of this orange light that's in here. And as I'm doing it, any of my class is watching, they know I'll say, all right, once you streak it in, go back and add water and soften some of those, let them bleed into each other a little bit. You don't want a whole bunch of stripes that are the same direction, the same width, the same values, like mix it up. Now all these vegetation lines get darker as they come down to the water insertion point, and then they get very dark. So at this point, I don't have to worry about that. I'm just building underneath color. So now I'm putting some of that red, opera, and quin or yellow ochre in there.
Do you ever mask, Donna?
I do. On this, because it was going to be a demo and needed to be done quickly, what I was going to tell you is that if you need to pull some light back into it, I did on the other painting, I'll show you real quick, just to grab a few little lights right at the end in here. I just used gouache, and what I've learned with gouache is just put the pure white gouache down and let it dry and then put color back over top of it, because if you try to mix color into white, it just doesn't work. But if you put the white down first and then put the color on top of it once it's dry, that works a lot better. If I'm doing a complicated painting that has a lot of small little highlights, like if you looked at that close-up of the horse with the boot that I painted last year, all the stitching and highlights on the metal. There's no way I could paint that without, or the spider web. The spider web, every little dot had to be masked. So I could do washes behind it and across it. And then each dot had to have reflection in it. So every dot had to be painted. So it just completely depends on what you're painting. A landscape like this, unless you're trying to enter a transparent show and you can't have wash, it's, again, I would be more intentional and paint more slowly, but I don't think you would need it in this situation. So again, the colors in the water are going to be a little darker. This is another red that I started using recently, and it's fire engine red. It's got a little bit of brown in it, and I really like it for landscapes because it taps down. That's an American Journey paint. It taps down the red from being quite so screamy. Makes it very friendly to use. And again, the reflection of these palms in the water are going to be more red than the orange ones that are above the water. So just stick a little bit around. But you can see, you know, as you're moving forward now, you're just slowly going through the details of filling in the blanks. The water was very still, but even in still water, having a little movement added in is not ever a bad thing. Sometimes trying to put a water reflection that isn't moving almost looks a little bit funky. So I tend to come through, and this is just with a clean, wet brush, break those lines, get some movement going in the water. And it also helps to push back the reflection just a little bit, because the reflection is the secondary subject to what it's reflecting, in other words. So I don't want it to be as commanding of attention as what's above water, if that makes sense. I was able to paint the finished one in probably about 6 hours, 6 to 7 hours. So I know we don't have that time here. But if anybody is interested in looking at it more closely, I'd be happy to share the image with Ron, and he could
What other greens did you use other than the olive green?
the other greens that I use in my palette, I have Hooker's Green by Michael Harden. I have a sap green by, I couldn't find my sap green, and this was one that came out of Taylor stuff. I'd never heard of it. I think it was called Master's Choice or something. I think it's just a cheapy alt brand kind of deal. Stanilier Green is this really bright blue green.
Is it like winter green?
Yes, it's very bright, and I don't really have, that's too bright, too tropical for, you know, at sunset you're not, the bright colors you're gonna have are still, they're not tropical bright colors in the middle of the sun light. They're all dulled down with yellow and orange in them. So, you know, this olive green is like a perfect color for that time of night. And then, this is Greenish Umber by Sennelier, and it looks like it's got some black in it. I don't know if y'all can see that, but that's really a pretty green. So mixing that to get into your darker greens with that olive is just really pretty. I'll stick some over in here so y'all can see. This one
Donna,
is dark.
for your workshop, are you going to supply the image?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would like to do more than one. Because I know it's just a 2-day workshop, but I feel like when I'm painting, as you saw here, you have to put it down, let it dry at times. And I like to have 2 different things that we can focus on so we can learn to. So I'm thinking we'll do one sunset so we can really focus on using the Fabriano 300-pound cold press and how painting opposite colors together can work. So it's very layered. You have to be patient and let it dry. So in order to accomplish that, I'd like to have a second subject. And so I haven't picked out a specific subject yet, but it will be Florida themed. It will probably be something like a tropical bird, or, you know, something that's in motion, that's doing something interesting. It's not going to be just like flowers or a still life or anything like that. So, and it'll tackle that also at the golden hour, but in a different capacity. It'll be easier to manage that without having to sit through letting it dry as much as the sunsets. We have one of the things that I tell people to do is get yourself a good camera and keep it with you, because it's always when you don't have your camera when you see the best wildlife or the best scenes or the most interesting people. So it's worth the investment. And there's so many good cameras now. I mean, even just using your phone, you can get so many great pictures, but it's worth the investment of time to learn how to manipulate your photography. I rarely paint a picture that hasn't been cropped, edited, changed. Even this picture, I did some cropping. I actually also I was moving past this scene slowly in a boat, and I probably took 15 pictures of it. And so every picture is slightly different angle. And then you can go back and study your picture and decide which angle is the best, what's showing, and oftentimes using pieces and parts from different pictures. And it's the most freeing thing if you're going to use photos for reference, is to let go of using the whole photo and just choose the parts that are going to work for you. So for example, this tree back here actually goes behind this tree and stops. So I took the liberty to elongate it so you can actually see it poke out from that tree, and it makes more sense. That's a little edit, but it's something that helps the picture tell the story a little bit better. So you always have to be thinking about what your composition is doing and how it's going to demonstrate your story the best. So I feel like, does this go to 8:30? I don't want to go overtime, but I just wanted to check where we're at with time.
No, we got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, okay. So I'm gonna show you real quickly, like on this back tree, it's in shadow. And so what I really like to do, I mentioned before, is to use purple and indigo oftentimes to get really into my darks. And this is too soon, other than for demonstration purposes to talk about this. But in a palm tree, we all know that they're green and brown and gray. They're so much more interesting if you introduce, even on a little capacity, some other colors. And oftentimes these purples that run down as shadows or the underneath dead parts of the trees end up making the tree so much more interesting. These trees actually have a really dark edge to them, which is, I'm sure, brown. But if you stick a little bit of purple and blue in there, it's so much more fun. So I just encourage people to like, and you can always water it down so it's more like a shadow of what's coming from behind the tree. It helps it feel more three-dimensional if you do that. Again, the palm tree, you want to keep light in the front of the tree, but you have to get deep, deep darks to make the palm fronds really pop. So the insertion points of these fronds have to really, so you see what I'm doing is I'm trying to dance around leaving light in the front, but getting dark underneath. It's darker on the left side of the tree, so creating more of that drama on the left side of the tree. Letting your sky, so you see this is really dry, pretty light. So I might want to go back and increase how strong my sky is before I finish. But in the meantime, it's really good to let your sky be peeking through your tree. So if you don't have enough blue showing up, adding some of the blue like that also helps make it seem more realistic and more interesting than just flat vegetation. These trees, the fronds are casting shadows across the trunks towards the top. Again, using purple and blues. If you notice, I tend to jump with my brush a lot. I'm trying to create texture so that it looks rough. The tree is rough, and I definitely want it to give that feel.
You're getting some kudos. Nancy says, thanks, inspiring and validating.
Oh,
And
good.
Fran says, thanks for explaining your thought process when you select your colors and for
Yeah.
identifying the colors. I knew that was going to happen. And she learned a lot about color combinations.
Good.
You think this was good? Take the workshop.
That's right.
That's right.
I'd love for you to come. It'd be super fun. So, again, it's a lot of layering, a lot of letting it dry, a lot of pushing things back, pulling things forward. I so appreciate you guys being here and listening and watching, and I love the feedback. You know, and you sit in your hole and you paint all the time. It's really fun to be able to share, get outside your hole once in a while. So anyway, would love any input if people are interested in the workshop too. I am. I'm sorry.
I'm adding a spotlight.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, so if anybody is interested in the workshop and are interested in focusing on anything in particular, feel free to email me and we can talk about it and come up with ideas of what would work well. I definitely am looking for 2 subjects. I think we can do one each day and probably not complete one each day, but work on 2 throughout the course of 2 days and at least understand and learn 2 different processes, focusing on the same golden hour time period, and really enjoy learning how to paint those objects. So I don't think we have to use Sennelier paper for both, but we certainly can. But it might be fun to try 2 different papers too. So I'm always game for trying anything and walking through that process with my class. So I feel like right now we're doing a batik in my class, and complete different process, and it's so fun. So anyway, we could do that if people wanted to. So anyway.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was very, very enjoyable. Nothing that I would ever paint. I'll leave that.
I'll put a little cocktail tree in the middle.
That would work. That would definitely work. But yeah, just I love the way the water, the way that you're tipping the paper, and then when you bent it in half, I'm going, wow, that's, you know, nothing that I've ever done. But my big brush is a 0 and my little brush is a 4/0. So not the same at all. But thank you, Donna. Much appreciated. And thank you, Kathy, for running the cameras and setting up, and everything looked great and worked great and fantastic. And I know Ron's got his finger on the end meeting button, but I want to say just a couple more things. As you all saw, that it does take a village to bring you these presentations. And thanks so much to all involved, Donna and Kathy and Ron, and Roberta, who couldn't be here tonight, but she's here in spirit. And thanks to Tampa Bay Regional Arts, a very nice facility to work with. That's great. One more announcement is we do have a couple of board openings. If anybody is interested in joining the team, email at info@floridawatercolor.org if you are. And if not the board, we always have plenty of volunteer opportunities throughout the year, and especially around convention.
So you know, we're here in Tampa, so all you people that are Tampa locals, the convention's in St. Pete this year. So
no
it's a great no excuse, but we definitely rely heavily on our volunteers from the local area, because it's easiest for you guys. And it's such an incredible learning opportunity. I've been telling my class, like, you cannot learn this kind of stuff anywhere like you can with Florida watercolors. So please consider coming out, volunteering, being part of it all. I'm going to be there, obviously. All our lovely volunteers work hard to make it the best every single year of every state society. So please come.
What she said. Thank you, Donna. And we'll see you on May 5th for Helen Sohn's third Thursday, Sunday, May 5th. Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo. Woohoo.
Helen Soane's demo. And until then, keep those brushes wet. Happy painting and looking forward to seeing your entries for the 53rd annual exhibition.
Yay. Thank you so
Night.
much. So fun to be here.